Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the gentleman who knew too much, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. The crack of thunder reverberated through the decaying manor, a solitary clap that seemed to awaken the shadows from their slumber. Rain lashed against the windows, each drop a reminder of the tempest brewing outside, and, perhaps, of the greater storm brewing within the hearts of those inside. As candlelight flickered erratically, casting morose shadows on the walls, an eerie tension settled over the assembled guests, a blend of apprehension and subdued anticipation. The dimly lit drawing room of the Craven estate was far from the safe haven it was meant to be. It was the stage set for secrets, lies, and a chilling revelation yet to come. The evening had begun with excitement, a reunion of the wealthy, the glittering, and those haunted by a more sinister personal history. Present were Lady Evelyn Craven, the elegant widow with a heart wrapped tightly in grief; Charles Dempsey, a dashing yet unscrupulous entrepreneur; and Miss Harriet Wilkins, a reserved but astute governess harboring a past that seemed to cast a long shadow. But it was the arrival of an uninvited guest that shifted the atmosphere from convivial to ominous: the enigmatic Monsieur Hercule Poirot. "The rain, it has conspired against me, cher ami," Poirot said, smoothing his immaculate mustache as he entered the room. Dressed in his classic tailored suit, he commanded attention effortlessly. "And yet, it is fortuitous that I find the company of such intriguing types this dreary evening." The guests exchanged wary glances, enveloped in attention only, heightened by the storm outside, as though the elements themselves had somehow conspired to bring them together for an unforeseen reckoning. Suddenly the power flickered and then extinguished, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps echoed, and amidst the chaos of startled voices and scraping chairs, a piercing scream shattered the night, followed by a heavy thud that silenced all. The candlelight flickered back to life, revealing a sight that would forever haunt the lives of those in attendance. The lifeless form of Charles Dempsey sprawled across the plush carpet, a small dagger buried in his chest, his eyes wide with shock, hinting at the final moment of betrayal. As chaos ensued, Poirot remained astoundingly composed. He observed the panic that erupted in the room, his mind racing through the permutations of this shocking event. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured to himself, already sifting through the chaos, noting the slightest tremors of fear and unspoken secrets cloaked in the guise of shock. Lady Evelyn staggered backwards, her hand clasped over her mouth, revealing more than fear. There lay the ghost of something far deeper. "He was my friend. How could this happen?" she stammered, though a flicker of something darker danced behind her eyes. Miss Wilkins stood frozen, her expression inscrutable as she clutched the edge of the mantel, her breath shallow, casting nervous glances toward the body and then to Poirot. However, it was the storm's fury outside that mirrored her internal state, a maelstrom waiting to be unleashed. Poirot began his investigation with deliberate calm, guiding the terrified guests into the shadowy yet elegant parlor, where whispers of accusation would flutter freely amongst them. "Mon ami," he began, his voice cutting through their chatter, "we must ascertain the truth in this siege of horror. I would request your indulgence, for it is your words, your actions, that shall weave the fabric of this mystery." "I had nothing to do with this," Lady Evelyn exclaimed, her voice rising defensively. "Charles and I were merely discussing business, of nothing nefarious, I assure you." Poirot raised a brow, his gaze penetrating. "Ah, but it is the seemingly innocuous discussions that often veil the most treacherous of intentions." His eyes danced from one to the other, taking in their reactions, the shadows dancing around them in the dim light, a tapestry of deception woven intricately from their very fears. As the investigation continued, Poirot began to notice small clues that betrayed the innocence of those who appeared to be victims of circumstance. Lady Evelyn's expensive emerald brooch was now missing, casting aspersions upon her claim of disinterest in wealth, a precarity that seemed to paint her in a more dubious light. Miss Wilkins's nervous laughter habitually punctuated their conversations, and her account of the evening's timeline was laced with contradictions that begged for revelation. "Are we to believe that you were unaware of the tensions brewing between Dempsey and your employer, Cherie?" He gently pushed, his keen mind dissecting her every word. Meanwhile, the newest suspect, the mysterious guest himself, was obliviously scrutinizing the room, his presence an odd mixture of an intruder and an earnest seeker of truth. "Perhaps, Mr. Poirot, you might suspect I have come to usurp. What was it that Dempsey stood to gain?" he asked quietly, but Poirot sensed the thin veil of disdain. Conversations grew increasingly circular, implicating everyone involved, yet the heart of the truth eluded him. Just as suspicion seemed to shift towards Lady Evelyn, Poirot found an unforeseen twist. A trail of unique handkerchiefs led to an unexpected claimant, a series of red herrings creating an intricate web tying back to Dempsey's notorious dealings in the underbelly of society. "Mayhap it is glaringly evident that there is more to our dear Charles, no?" he entreated, extracting details buried deep within the layers of deceit and politeness. Each day and night, each moment spent unraveled a truth threaded in betrayal. With every clue, tension mounted. Lady Evelyn's quiet intensity ignited something further, and Miss Wilkins's murmurings became pleads of agony as darkness closed in. Finally, as the storm howled louder outside, Poirot concluded his search. "I have observed many things, but one thing eludes me. Who amongst us has betrayed their heart? And for what purpose?" Drawing closer to resolutions yet untangled and misjudged relationships, one final question echoed hauntingly in his mind. The truth was scattered far and wide, yet all fingers pointed too near and too dear. When next the candlelight illuminated the room, a drama unfolded where betrayal collided with shattered innocence. Poirot, unyielding, exposed two layers of duplicity, one inspired by greed, the other by despair, leading back to a single thread. In the culmination of darkness cloaked in elegant fancies, it became breathtakingly clear that amidst betrayal, a shocking bond held true. None could imagine who fell behind their ideals. And thus, as the sensible eye settled upon that final revelation, Poirot stood amidst a now breathless crowd. The pendulum of fate had swung sharply, the players laid bare in their suffering. Raising his hand ever so slightly, he uttered his final words of pensive reason. "Indeed, my friends, it is said that the cost of deception weighs heavily upon the souls of men and women alike." Outside, the thunder rumbled discontentedly, as if even the heavens bore witness to the turmoil of humankind, where shadows hid more than mere secrets. Chapter 2. A Fatal Invitation. The clock struck dreadfully at midnight, its relentless chimes resonating like the ominous beats of a funeral dirge in the stillness of the Craven estate. Outside, the storm roared with ferocity, rattling the ancient windows, while inside, a palpable tension simmered in the air. Shadows flickered nervously against the walls, taunting the barely hidden fears of those gathered. "But no, not again," Lady Evelyn muttered under her breath as her gaze wandered to the closed door. An invitation she had dreaded, one she feared held a sinister promise. Drawn by the tantalizing whisper of a sinister secret, Monsieur Hercule Poirot found himself ensnared in a web of escalating intrigue once more. Following the shocking events of the previous occasion, there lay a sense of foreboding that enveloped the manor, almost as thick as the mist cloaking the grounds outside. The invitation had been intended for an intimate gathering of familiar faces, a dinner to soothe the frayed nerves of its attendees. Yet as each guest arrived, a dark undercurrent rippled through their exchanges, hints at hidden resentments surfacing like dark specters. "I hope you are all prepared for a most enlightening evening," Lady Evelyn said, her voice laced with a forced gaiety that fell flat against the anxieties pulsating in the room. Henrietta Blanchard, a vibrant socialite whose laughter was often mistaken for genuine merriment, appeared particularly on edge. Her keen gaze darted about, suggesting a past entangled with secrets of its own. "Why, Lady Evelyn, One hopes your culinary skills are as astute as your taste in company, she recommended. Yet the lightness in her voice failed to mask the tremor beneath her words. Poirot, ever the astute observer, noted the slightest flicker of apprehension in her emerald eyes. What dark tale lay behind this facade? Then there was Walter Penn, a brooding figure whose education placed him in high esteem, yet rendered him woefully disconnected from the social graces of his peers. What he had once called ambition became more of an albatross around his neck, twisting his fate into one of bitterness, which whispered at the edges of his expressions like a malevolent spirit. I must say, a night like this, fraught with revelations, lends itself well to honesty, he remarked, studying the concerned features of his fellow guests, each mask a thin veil igniting mere curiosity in the others. Poirot found his demeanor intriguing, a man shoved to the precipice of revelation, yet paralyzed by either fear or desire. As Poirot settled into the gathered company, a shattering scream erupted, coursing through the dense layer of tension that engulfed them. The exquisite dining room, adorned with flickering candles that danced to the tempest's rhythm, transformed into a tableau of horror. There, sprawled grotesquely across the polished wood floor, lay the lifeless body of Henrietta Blanchard, her face marred in an expression of eternal shock, a delicate letter opener embedded in her chest. A cruel irony, since the invitation that summoned them had borne her hand. Thunder rumbled ominously, and the chaos swelled, hearts racing in a cacophony of disbelief and grief. Poirot remained eerily composed amidst the turmoil, analyzing every prominent detail that unfolded. Mon ami, he declared calmly, cutting through the chaos with a voice tempered like the very steel of his resolve. We now find ourselves ensnared once more in a tragedy most dire. We must discover what lay behind this most fatal invitation. The storm outside lashed furiously, echoes of nature's wrath mirroring the turmoil brewing within each suspect's heart. Lady Evelyn's composure shattered as horror befell her. Not again! How could this happen in my home? Her hands trembled at her sides, fingers twisting around her jewelry. Poirot studied her closely, noting the glint of panic in her eyes that flashed like lightning. As the investigation unfolded, Poirot approached each guest with patience, interrogating them with apparent gentleness, but beneath it lay a razor's edge of logic and insight. Tell me, Walter, what occasioned your strained demeanor upon entering this hallowed haven? He leaned forward inquisitively, catching the slight quiver of the man's lip. A muted anxiety lurked within him, a betrayal to the audience of their group. I was absorbed in my thoughts about the market, he stumbled, cautious to reveal the urge gnawing at his insides. Poirot moved seamlessly to Henrietta's husband, the somber and reserved Jonathan Blanchard, a man grappling with shadows of despair that clung to him like a shroud. Your wife seemed rather pensive tonight, was she not? Poirot pressed softly. Jonathan's eyes darkened, a flicker of emotion, spilling forth, a grief swallowed by resentment. Perhaps the weight of our life together proved too pressing in such an audience, he replied tersely, bitterness lacing his words like poison. As Poirot collected their accounts, he noticed trivial inconsistencies. An unsent letter left carelessly on the table beside Henrietta, its ink still wet. A clue that heralded deeper intrigues. Lady Evelyn's necklace, the exceptional ruby that seemed to glimmer mischievously in the flickering candlelight, had vanished, a potential motive tied to the wealth wrapped in tragedy's embrace. Oh, how frail were the threads of trust that bound them all. Just as it appeared Lady Evelyn and Jonathan bore the weight of guilt, Poirot's keen perception caught a moment of fleeting despair reflected in Walter's eyes. An incongruous fear intermingled with something darker, buried beneath his intellectual surface. Ah, a mind such as yours, Walter, often holds the most tantalizing secrets. Would it not be prudent to share the thoughts that haunt your mind? His voice was edged with curiosity as Poirot readied himself for a revelation shrouded in patterns of deceit. As the investigation drew tighter, Poirot finally pried a confession from unexpected quarters. A careful misdirection spun upon tortured hearts. Henrietta's death was not intended for her, but was a cruelly miscalculated drama, Jonathan whispered, the truth slipping from his lips like pouring sand. The room held its breath. The puzzle pieces began to fall together in chaotic harmony. It became startlingly evident that a secret embryonic friendship existed between Walter and Henrietta, one steeped in envy, where ambition dared challenge morality itself. Yet lurking still was a deeper betrayal, as Poirot felt the weight of the unseen sharpen around his own perceptions. With one last theatrical flourish, he drew forth the real culprit, a revelation that unfolded within a breath. The letter opener was but a ruse, an uncrafted plan, discovered too late. "Ah, mon ami, deception spins thicker than mere appearance," he intoned sharply, "and I believe it was not financial gain that led to murder." As he unveiled the web that bound them, a final twist drew them all to the precipice of inherence. The motivations that shaded their truths transformed the victims into would-be actors, in a game far more sinister than they had perceived. "Indeed, it appears that no heart remains untouched by treachery," Poirot mused as Lady Evelyn's eyes widened in horror at her own reflection. A discordant note of innocence stripped away. Upon realizing the depths of betrayal, echoes of anguish reverberated through the somber manor. The wind howling outside as if mourning the legitimacy of friendship turned dark. With the dagger of truth laid bare, Poirot prepared to leave them to their revelations, offering one final glance over his shoulder. "It is said, my friends, that the shadows we cast may well consume the light we once cherished. Beware, for the heart holds many secrets, indeed." With that, the clock continued to chime, relentless and merciless, as outside the storm bore witness to the tempest within the souls of men. Chapter 3. Secrets Beneath the Surface. The air crackled with tension as Poirot stood amidst the gathered guests, shadows dancing ominously upon the walls like specters of the past. Outside, the storm raged, its thunderbolts lashing against the manor as if nature itself sought to unearth the secrets buried within its walls. A gust of wind slammed a window shut, rattling the ornate glass, and with it the fragile peace that had settled in the chaotic aftermath of Henrietta Blanchard's murder. It was within this unnerving atmosphere that Hercule Poirot sensed that all was not as it seemed. Even the most innocent of faces bore masks of deception. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot mused softly, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts as he scrutinized the collection of esteemed guests before him. Each one had arrived with their own intrigues, but now they appeared strangely united in the wake of tragedy. They were bound not by grief, but by the unspoken fears of a common culpability. He observed carefully, noting their reactions, their movements. Lady Evelyn stood rigid among them, her beauty marred by an expression of dread. Walter Penn appeared to grapple with a far heavier burden than mere concern, while Jonathan Blanchard's somber demeanor masked a labyrinth of pent-up emotions. As the clock struck 1, a chilling silence fell over the assembly, each guest awaiting the next step in this macabre unfolding. "Monsieur Poirot," Lady Evelyn began, her voice trembling slightly, "surely we cannot remain here under these circumstances. We must—" "Ah, but my dear lady, it is precisely because of the morbid circumstances that we must remain. We dance upon the precipice of revelation, and I must first assess what shadows lie hidden beneath the surface of our dearly departed's life," Poirot interrupted, his tone both gentle and firm. After shushing the guests into quietness, Poirot steered the conversation back to the last moments of Henrietta's life. He probed into their interplay, watching their faces twist under the light of revelation. "You invite us into your abode, Lady Evelyn, yet your joy seems a fragile facade tonight. Was not Henrietta your dear friend?" The lament weighed heavily in her silence, but Walter seized the moment. "Her letters suggested otherwise," he interjected, his voice laced with uncharacteristic boldness. "There were undertones of rivalry, of jealousy." "Walter, how dare you?" Jonathan snapped, venom dripping from his words. "Henrietta held no ill will, though your previous entanglements may hint otherwise." Poirot's sharp mind darted between their exchanges, seeking not merely the words but the silences, the glances, the lies tucked away beneath layers of grief. A slip of paper caught his eye then, a note that had slipped from Lady Evelyn's clasp. He swiped it discreetly, noting its sweaty sheen in the hastily penned script. A confession? Or an invitation? As tension simmered, Poirot decided to extract further confessions. "Tell me, Lady Evelyn," he continued, his accent twinkling with intrigue, "in the intimacy shared, did you notice any shadows in Henrietta's engagements? Any risks she may have dared venture?" The lady hesitated, uncertainty wrapping around her tongue. She seemed restless. Of late, our gatherings became marked by her longing for something beyond what this insipid life offered. But she bore no malice towards me, I swear it. Her eyes flickered towards Walter as if seeking affirmation that her claims would withstand scrutiny. "Indeed, Walter Penn, what was your true relation with the late husband of Henrietta, who shared an intimate academic rivalry with you?" Poirot prompted, his gaze unyielding. Walter's brow crinkled, the tension tightening around his features. "Jonathan and I, merely associates." He focused his intellect solely upon his pursuits, far removed from our shared interests. "Ah, but the complexity of human emotion reflects otherwise, does it not? Mistrust breeds contempt if allowed to fester. Is it possible, overladen with aspirations and ambition concurred with a softer shade of envy, blinded your partnership?" Tension erupted into chaos as accusations flared. Poirot moved swiftly from one suspect to another, each one revealing their layers. Like peeling paint, he found a red herring, an unsent letter tucked among the remnants of their dinner, the ink fresh yet untouched, a tangible memory binding them to secrets. "Yet there lies more," Poirot urged, returning to Jonathan, whose eyes betrayed an abyss of pain. "You insinuate Henrietta sought to flee from your shared miseries. Would you nurture her dreams as a devoted husband, or would the fear of losing yourself to her aspirations ignite a flame suffused with desperation?" Jonathan's composure faltered, a flicker of rage igniting anew. "You know nothing. Henrietta had her desires, yes, but I was not blind to her failings. I gave her everything." Scheduled revelations unfolded like nightmares as Poirot continued to unravel the tangled web of secrets, until finally, in the depth of night-darkened silence, amid the echoes of an ill-fated past, Poirot perceived the unsettling truth. "Yet you see, dear friends, the dagger of betrayal cuts deeper than mere competition." Poirot stood still, his voice resonating with temporal intensity. Walter Penn's ambition intertwines with a dangerous desire to elevate his stature. He would not dare sow demise upon Henrietta, for it would ruin his quest for acceptance among society. Gasps echoed in the room, doubt and confusion painting the faces of every suspect. But Poirot merely stepped toward the shadows, eyes piercing through the veil. This gruesome tragedy was indeed miscalculated, a blunder born from illusions of lost love and quest for recognition. In the muted dark of the Craven estate, the murmur of storm clouds outside peppered the air, and Poirot relished in the grasp of discovery. But I believe beneath it all arises a truth. The true architect of this drama may yet be far from sight. Indeed, it is Lady Evelyn, cloaked in veils both of loyalty and concealed heartache. It was her hand that maneuvered events, orchestrating betrayals that scattered like ashes in the wind. A breathless silence enveloped the gathering, horror etched upon their faces. And there in the shadows, Poirot delivered his final resolution, his voice ringing with measured yet poignant clarity. "Wounds, my dear friends, are seldom healed when wrapped tightly in avarice and ambition, and oftentimes it is within the insatiable desire for love that the heart reveals its truest, most treacherous secrets." With those words echoing within the cavernous hall, Poirot turned, silhouetted against the flickering candlelight's dance as pardonless truths washed over the stunned assembly. The storm roared in accord beyond the sanctuary of the Craven estate, carrying with it the restless spirits of revelation, alive still as they danced upon the precarious edge of chaos. Chapter 4. The Clock Strikes Confession. The wind howled like a banshee outside the ancient Craven estate, a symphony of chaos that paralleled the brewing storm within. Each gust rattled the windows, a foreboding herald of the night's impending revelations, as the very air seemed thick with unanswered questions. Inside, the flickering candlelight cast ghostly shadows upon the walls, where glances were exchanged that whispered of secrets far darker than the evening itself. Poirot surveyed the room, his eyes glinting like steel, as he recognized the palpable tension in the air, the kind that precedes a confession. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused softly to himself, a hint of melancholy washing over his expression. He glanced at the assemblage of suspects, each distinct yet unified in their shared deceit. Lady Evelyn still cast an aura of questionable grief, her beauty now allied with suspicion. Walter stood apart, his brow knotting with unshed anxiety, and Jonathan, his countenance flickering between sorrow and rage, fidgeted with the hem of his jacket. Each person bore the unmistakable mark of guilt, the truth festering beneath their polished exteriors. The clock on the wall ticked with an insistent rhythm, underscoring their mutual discomfort, and the last remnants of twilight faded into the inky blackness outside. An unsettling certainty nestled within Poirot's mind. He sensed that the heart of the matter lay not solely in the murder of Henrietta Blanchard, but simmered deeper, intertwined within the lives of those who surrounded him. He commenced his inquiry with measured elegance, directing his focus towards Lady Evelyn. Mon ami, what truly transpired on the ill-fated night of Henrietta's demise? Lady Evelyn's composure faltered for just a moment as she wrestled with her memories. A candle flickered nearby, momentarily casting her visage in stark relief as tears welled in her eyes. We were discussing our futures. Her voice trembled, uncertainty lacing each word. Henrietta had no intention to harm anyone, nor did she suggest any ill against those she cared for. However, Poirot detected a slight tremor in her hand, a subtle quiver that signaled a truth stretched too thin. Now, turning his gaze to Walter, the accomplished scholar whose intellect was both admired and envied, Poirot leaned closer. Yet, Monsieur Pen, was it not you who penned a rather scathing critique of Henrietta's work at the last meeting? Jealousy, it has a most corrosive nature. Walter shifted uncomfortably. The weight of Poirot's gaze felt like a noose tightening. I merely aim to elevate the standard of our discourse, he stammered, defensiveness creeping into his tone. Her poetry was riddled with cliches. Before Poirot could further dissect Walter's words, Jonathan interjected, hostility coloring his voice. That's quite enough, Walter. Henrietta was always the star of our circles. Your bitterness lies bare for all to see. The atmosphere shifted, charged with accusations as Poirot seized upon the moment, sensing the discord rippling through the room. Passion, he said, whether it be for love or ambition, can inspire either great art or take a darker turn. Non? Poirot paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. It begs the question, who among you would feel the greatest loss were Henrietta to release her ambitions from their shackles? Is there an unseen hand that could guide the course of envy into something more sinister? As he spoke, he noticed Jonathan's jaw tighten, a flicker of something dangerous, a telltale sign of repressed fury. Poirot moved to the table, his keen gaze scanning the remnants of Henrietta's last meal. A silver letter opener, stark, against the drab tablecloth, caught his eye, a potentially incriminating relic. My friends, I implore you to cast aside milieu of nicety for a moment. The truth hides among us. Let us not forget the keen edge of emotions that can lead to irrevocable actions. His words hung in the air like a sharp blade, forcing the room into a perceptive silence. Hours seemed to slip away in a labyrinth of words and shadows, each suspect alternating between offense and evasion. Poirot slowed down, taking note of the small movements, the way Lady Evelyn's gaze shifted to a forgotten note on the mantel, and how Walter, when he believed no one looked, fidgeted with the cufflinks of his shirt. Ah, the finely crafted facades they exhibit, Poirot thought, but beneath they cower in the face of revelations. As the clock inched towards midnight, Poirot gathered them once more, their faces pale under the ghostly candlelight. It is time, he declared, for clarity in the storm of uncertainty. Who among you feels a burden borne too heavy? There was a stillness, as if the house itself were listening, and the silence erupted into a cacophony of conflicting emotions. Jonathan! Lady Evelyn suddenly cried, her voice cracking. "It is you who have shielded the truth from all, insisting we carry the weight of our grief while allowing your jealousy to simmer." The accusation hung in the air, volatility unfurling like smoke. Poirot's gaze flickered back to Jonathan, whose anger seemed to twist into anguish. "How could you say that?" Jonathan's voice strained. "Only Henrietta knew what it truly meant to dream beyond our suffocating lives." "I loved her." Poirot's piercing gaze bore into Jonathan's as the pieces began to fit. A portrait of ambition twisted by unrequited love and toxic aspirations. Moments later, amidst the tumult, a chilling confession swept through the darkness. "Henrietta was mine," Walter exclaimed, his voice rising into a fever pitch. "Her dreams were not for you too. Clutch. I sought her spirit in you. You smothered her light with your failure." Realization struck, the truth of their rivalry rediscovered in their desperation. It was then, in that fractious moment, Poirot seized upon an inkling, a deeper connection lying hidden in the shadows that transcended rivalry and ambition. "Gentlemen, there lies within you a treachery that runs deeper than any professional grievance. A deceiver cloaked in the guise of loyalty, masquerading as a friend. It is you." "Lady Evelyn!" Gasps filled the air, and Poirot continued, his voice steady. "You orchestrated the stage, watching from the sidelines as jealousy took its toll." As Lady Evelyn recoiled, her mask shattered under the weight of the accusation. The culmination of misdirection led to emotional truths laid bare. "Your heart, my dear, entangled with willfulness, birthed a storm of ruin. In seeking to unearth Henrietta's secret life, you unknowingly forged her demise." "Ah, mon ami," Poirot's voice resonated sadly. "How the desire for sanctuary can morph into a treacherous grip upon the heart, leading to scars that haunt beyond death." The clock now struck midnight, each toll solemnly amplifying the weight of their revelations as Lady Evelyn broke down. Stormy winds raged outside, their cries an echo of the twisted nature of dreams. In that moment, Poirot knew that the curtains had fallen upon a drama rife with ambition, betrayal, and lost love. The stage once shared was now a graveyard of betrayals. As Poirot turned to leave, he cast one last lingering glance over his shoulder. "Remember, my friends, it is not the act of betrayal that leaves scars upon the heart, but the silence of those who could speak the truth." With those parting words, he stepped into the tempest outside, leaving a tumultuous history within the walls of the Craven estate, where shadows lingered long after the final act had closed. Chapter 5. Shadows of Doubt. The echo of thunder rolled like a warning bell across the night sky, as if the storm itself was protesting the events that had unfolded within the haunted halls of the Craven estate. Lightning split the darkness with jagged brilliance, illuminating a figure cloaked in shadows, a spectral reflection of secrets long buried. It was there, amidst the chaos of swirling fears and resentments, that the unthinkable had occurred. The body of Lady Evelyn lay lifeless at the foot of the grand staircase, her once vibrant spirit extinguished, leaving the others to stand bewildered, eyes wide with shock and horror. Amidst the turmoil, Hercule Poirot emerged as a lighthouse upon tumultuous seas, his mind meticulously sifting through the dust of despair settling in the air. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he whispered to himself, his gaze sweeping over the agitated assembly surrounding the tragic scene. Walter Penn, pale and trembling, clutched the railing as if it were his only anchor to reality. In contrast, Jonathan twisted the sleeve of his jacket, his breathing rapid with barely concealed anger and confusion. The third party, a shadowy figure cloaked in grief, was the enigmatic Miss Clara March, a longtime confidant of Lady Evelyn, whose own past was lined with secrets that could rival the darkest corners of the estate. As thunder again shook the ground beneath them, Poirot began his interrogation with a calm demeanor, aware that within the chaos lay the key to unraveling the twisted tale that had led to such tragedy. "My friends, let us restore clarity before despair claims us all. We must understand what passed on this ill-fated night and what might lead a person to such an act of violence," he stated, his voice resonating with a quiet authority. He noted the flickers of unease displayed in each of their faces, the guilt pressed against their brows like a heavy shroud. "Miss March," Poirot began, locking eyes with her as tension thickened the air. "You had been quite close to Lady Evelyn. What did you speak of that night? Surely her death weighed heavily upon your heart." Clara's face grew pale, and for a brief moment, a crack of emotion broke through her composure. "We were discussing our dreams, Mr. Poirot. Dreams that never could be, ambitions crushed by circumstances. She—" Clara's voice trembled, and Poirot noted how she instinctively glanced toward Walter before swallowing the words steeped in regret. Walter, desiring to reposition suspicion, interjected vehemently. "Henrietta and Evelyn shared a bond of mutual ambition. It was their rivalry that often drew us all into perilous waters. It was not a secret that Lady Evelyn felt overshadowed by Henrietta's potential. Perhaps Clara knew more than she let on." His eyes flickered with accusation, each syllable dripping with the palpable tension of truthful empathy, twisted into self-serving fear. Jonathan, however, flared with indignation. "That's absurd. Lady Evelyn wouldn't bring herself to harm someone she cared for, no matter the pressure." "You've always been jealous of her talents, Walter." Poirot observed the shifting dynamics among the trio, feeling the fleeting whispers of betrayal intertwine with the fabric of their shared histories. "Passion," Poirot mused thoughtfully, "be it for ambition or love, often spirals into acts unforeseen. Yet tell me, who would stand to gain from Lady Evelyn's demise? Were you not both enveloped in a forbidden challenge that sought to elevate your own standing?" His slow, deliberate questioning unraveled the tightly woven threads of their webs of deceit, compelling them to confront unacknowledged truths that lurked in the corners of their souls. As the investigation deepened, Poirot stumbled upon a misplaced journal beneath the table, cleverly concealed from the casual observer. The waxy cover bore the initials of Lady Evelyn, yet the writings within revealed an unsettling perspective, a narrative awash with coded messages portraying fear and desires, entangled in betrayal. Now, as the candlelight flickered and cast ominous shadows about the room, Poirot uncovered secrets veiled in elegantly penned prose, ties to both Clara and Walter that spoke of limb-bearing betrayals buried beneath a facade of loyalty. Then, like chains breaking from the morass of despair, Poirot found a peculiar passage, detailing a clandestine meeting on the night of the murder. A meeting that had been imagined, urged by the very hand of Clara. "To pursue ambition through the ashes of another's defeat," he murmured, "it is a wretched game indeed." The clue struck him hard, yet the final pieces eluded his sharp scrutiny. With the storm crescendoing outside, Poirot commenced a new round of questioning, knowing that one question could sever the ties that held these suspects together, compelling their hidden truths to the surface. "What do you fear more, my friends, losing your own desires or losing your power over one another?" His poised patience hung heavy, in the air. "Enough of these games. You wish to turn our friendship into a joke for your amusement?" Walter shot back, the strain evident in his voice. At that moment, Clara's mask slipped, her eyes flickering, not with sorrow, but a darker intent concealed beneath layers of affection she had for Lady Evelyn. "She had no idea what she put us through. I enviously watched her, drenched with success while I remained a mere shadow. But I loved her too much to ever harm her." The emotional undercurrent rippled through the chamber, casting doubt and draining hope as Poirot's sharp instincts urged him further down a perilous path. Finally, everything began to align when Jonathan's simmering anger morphed into agony. It all unveiled with the sudden implosion of heated confessions, spiraling towards clarity amid chaos. "I loved her, yes," he declared in anguish, "but the twisted ambition, it fell prey to my jealousy. I wished her to fail so fervently, I could not bear to see her trail before anyone." The final piece clicked into place, and Poirot turned, eyes focused intently on Clara, whose defensive facade ultimately crumbled beneath the weight of her own unguarded wishes. "You envied her brilliance, yet sought refuge in her oppression. You pushed her too far, and now even death couldn't sever the torment you carried." "Indeed, Clara," Poirot stated firmly, standing with imposing elegance as the victorious conductor of this grim symphony. For in pursuit of shared dreams you plotted the darkest of betrayals, all the while disguised as a devoted companion. You knew the whispers of jealousy would turn tragic. What exists beneath the surface can indeed drown those yearning for love. The revelation sent ripples of disbelief through the room. Each character stood transformed by their moments of weakness exposed, and just as a fresh gust rattled the windows, a final bolt of clarity struck the hearts of those gathered. Poirot turned to leave the confounding corridors of the estate, heavy-hearted yet resolute. As he descended the staircase, he cast one last glance back toward Clara, standing amidst the darkness. Remember, dear friends, the deepest shadows are but reflections of the light we once cherished. It is often those who walk the closest beside us that conceal the most treacherous truths. His voice lingered, resonating against the storm, as he stepped into the tempest, leaving behind a cacophony of shadows swirling through the smoldering remnants of honesty betrayed. Chapter 6. The Hidden Key. The thunderstorm raged with relentless fury, its ominous roars echoing through the desolate halls of the Craven estate. An electrifying charge filled the air, contrasting sharply with the growing dread that settled over the survivors of the night's calamity. In the dim light of the flickering candles, shadows danced like phantoms, twisting and turning across the walls, revealing nothing yet hinting at everything. Then, as the storm unleashed its wrath, the power surged and fell silent. All that remained was the cascading rhythm of raindrops against the windows, a sinister cadence chiming in the deathly stillness. Hercule Poirot stood amid the desolation, his exquisite brow furrowed in contemplation. The enormity of the events weighed heavily upon him, and yet a quiet determination simmered just beneath the surface. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he whispered, his voice barely a murmur above the storm's roar as he observed the ashen faces of the remaining guests. Walter Penn, a man of once indomitable spirit, now stood slack-jawed and trembling. Clara March, the once loyal confidant, now wore a mask of veiled guilt, her eyes darting anxiously like a cornered animal. And then there was Jonathan, whose grief had morphed into fury. He clenched his fists as if they could stave off the truth of Lady Evelyn's demise. As Poirot scrutinized the chaos and confusion before him, it quickly became evident that the shadows were not just illusions cast by the pale flame of their flickering wicks. Secrets entwined within the darkness, waiting to be unearthed like buried treasure hidden away from prying eyes. The storm blustered on, mirroring the tempest raging within the hearts of the witnesses to tragedy. "Let us begin, mes amis," Poirot declared, his voice like an anchor amid the turmoil. "What transpired on this night? I urge you to offer clarity through the waves of despair," he directed, his gaze to Clara, her trembling form accentuating the intensity of the moment. "You were so intimately close to Lady Evelyn. Speak to me of your last conversation." Clara's face turned ashen, the pressure of the moment cresting like a wave ready to crash. "We shared dreams, Monsieur Poirot. Dreams laced with struggles and desires." Her voice wavered as she concluded, but there was tension. Radiating jealousy coursed through the fragile air. A sentiment echoed in her journal. Poirot interjected smoothly, recalling the journal he had unearthed days before. The intricate web of emotions spun within its pages, fluttered before his mind's eye, a morose tapestry of longing and acrimony. "You said you loved her, yet knew of her anxieties. Tell me, Clara, did you not find cause for envy amid her triumphs?" The sharpness of Poirot's eyes bore into her, and an unsettling silence enveloped the room. Walter, sensing an opportunity for diversion, interjected. "That's nonsense. Clara adored Evelyn, if anything. It was Henrietta who cast a long shadow over her successes." His words carried a tinge of desperation, seeking to divert attention from himself as he wrung his hands. Poirot studied Walter intently, noting the defensive posturing and the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Ah, you speak of shadows, Walter, but do you not wear one yourself?" Poirot continued with an almost imperceptible smile. "It is remarkable indeed how hidden truths reveal themselves in a single moment. Did not Henrietta challenge you both at every corner? Were you not haunted by your own ambitions?" With a sudden flash of rage, Jonathan burst forth. Stop turning this into a circus. Evelyn was our friend. To imply that we desired her failure is grotesque. His voice dripped with an intensity that threatened to shatter the fragile calm within the estate. But what if jealousy had crept upon you like a thief in the night? Poirot mused quietly, the intrigue weaving around them, like strands in a delicate ghostly web. What if one's love encompassed overwhelming ambition that turned wretched? He let the tension build. Each accusation hovered between them like a sword unspoken. A noise echoed from the shadows, the creaking floorboards somehow amplifying their simmering turmoil. Poirot's attention shifted, his eyes narrowing as he considered an alluring connection others failed to notice. It was more than mere jealousy. There was something scattered about the atmosphere, a lingering whisper of a hidden key to something far more sinister. Behind him, a specter of memory flitted across the fringes of his recollection. "Mes amis, I must inquire. Tell me more of this hidden rivalry. Who truly stood to benefit from Lady Evelyn's demise?" His gaze darted towards the trio, assessing subtle signs reshaping their sympathies as walls of deception began to coalesce. Yet in this moment, a deeper truth began, unfurling from the recesses of Poirot's mind. Something different. The storm's fury was not the only tempest at play. Surfaces scratched beneath polished exteriors, and only a prying eye could reveal the stains hidden beneath. The hours waned as Poirot delved into individualized truths, listening to the reverberations of their answers. The tension spread into a thick humidity that stifled his surroundings. The revelation materialized in fleeting glimpses. Clara's deep adoration for Evelyn haunted by envy. Walter's buried aspirations that often eclipsed his regard. Jonathan's unrequited affection now twisted into bitterness. Finally, Poirot's meticulous unraveling led him to an inconspicuous detail. A loose floorboard near the grand staircase, just beyond where Lady Evelyn fell. With a precision unfamiliar to the chaotic shadow play, he approached it, prying it open with delicate fingers. Within the cavity lay an innocuous box, its contents whispering of forgotten secrets. A key. Its tarnished surface revealed the initials E.M., sending shivers coursing through him. "Ah, it appears I have found a hidden key," Poirot murmured softly, as all eyes followed the glimmer of revelation. A key to what, you may wonder? To a correspondence long kept distant from prying eyes? The tension escalated, each suspect's face reflecting their innermost fears. Jonathan's brows furrowed in confusion, while Walter's mouth set in a grim line. Clara's eyes widened, flickering between dread and hope as her breath quickened. "Indeed, what has been buried, my friends, often holds the darkest truths," Poirot declared, approaching the group with poise. "It is no mere coincidence that Lady Evelyn's legacy rests upon the very grip of power you all sought, a salve for your own wounds. What specters lie behind these walls seeking a final reckoning?" Poirot's calculated tone drew them in, but the storm's wrath had stirred more than just the night outside. Deep secrets converged with hidden desires, tethering their fates through a sinister web. Who continued, "But the true betrayal comes not from petty jealousies alone, but rather the fear of being cast aside by those they came to love." As Poirot brought forth the scattered tales buried deeper than even the earth could contrive, the full brunt of betrayal flooded forth. It became clear that mutual entanglements, tied in love and ambition, would redirect even the closest of relationships into mad cascades of treachery. In a moment of darkness, Clara wailed, "She deserved better. We loved her, each in our own twisted way. How could it all come to this?" Her heartache echoed across the ether. Jonathan and Walter found themselves caught in inexorable currents of grief and yearning, now tenants of their passions, plucked by fate. "Indeed a sad fate, Clara. But do not discount the actions of the heart," Poirot stated somberly. "For it is often those we cherish who become the very architects of our demise. You loved her too fiercely, and therein lies your doom." As he stepped backward from the maelstrom surrounding him, Poirot laid one final revelation upon them. Lady Evelyn knew too much and feared what was hidden away. The darkness shadowing your affections proved fatal, and now your entanglements reveal the treachery that lurked within. As with the storms outside, your hearts have wrought this tempest. In that dark embrace of loss and revelation, Poirot turned, leaving the unraveling cacophony of hushed whispers swirling behind him. Shadowed by secrets no longer escaped, he stepped into the turbulent night, the world forever marked by a storm that unearthed buried regrets. "Remember, mes amis," he pronounced with weighty resonance, "love unbridled while sweet hangs heavy with the possibility of betrayal, and all who walk in darkness must dwell in the light of truth." With those parting words swallowed by the gathering storm, he vanished into the tempest, the shadows of their shared tragedy clinging to him like a darkened shroud. Chapter 7. A game of misdirection. The wind howled outside like some vengeful spirit, and the rain lashed against the windows of the Craven estate with a ferocity that matched the tumult raging within the hearts of its inhabitants. The flickering light of the candles cast ghastly shadows upon the walls, twisting their shapes into grotesque interpretations of sorrow and betrayal. It was a night as heavy with portent as it was with rain, a tapestry woven with threads of fear and grief. As Poirot stood amidst the remnants of chaos, he could sense the fabric of decency ripping at the seams. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured softly, glancing at the assembled suspects. The air was thick with tension, the silence almost a character in itself. An unexpected chill darted through the room, instigating an involuntary shudder among the guests. Walter Penn, trembling and drenched in his own sweat, clutched a glass of whiskey as if it were a lifeline. The once charismatic businessman had grown pale, and now he seemed less a man of resolve than someone cornered by his own misjudgments. His hands shook as he gestured wildly, and his eyes darted furtively to the shadows, as if he might find some scapegoat lurking there in the darkness. "I swear I had nothing to do with it," he exclaimed, his voice cracking under the weight of both accusation and guilt. Clara March leaned against the cold marble fireplace, her face a mask of conflicting emotions. The loyalty she had, once exuded toward Lady Evelyn, lay now fractured by shades of jealousy and unease. She watched the men with narrowed eyes and a tentative resolve. Clara was a tapestry of contradictions, sweet yet sharp, vibrant yet muted. "We were all here together," she replied, her tone hovering between defiance and appeasement. "But tell me, Walter, could it be that your ambition obscured your loyalty?" Jonathan, standing with shoulders squared and fists clenched, cast an indignant look at both his comrades. His grief, already a heavy cloak, had soured into bitterness, redirecting his emotional energies towards anger. "Enough of this. Evelyn is dead, and you stand here bantering as if it is mere sport. What do you hope to gain from trading barbs at her expense? You think you can distract me from the truth?" His words whipped through the air like a blade, slicing into the heated atmosphere. Quietly yet firmly fixed amidst the fray, Poirot observed them all with a discerning gaze. The shadows concealed more than just their fears. They cloaked truths, some ugly, others hidden behind laughing facades. There was artful misdirection at work, subtle yet palpably present as he caught the glint of treachery lurking behind Walter's accommodating exterior. The quiver of Clara's voice, which suggested more than mourning, and the fury simmering in Jonathan's resolve, overlaying a deeper hurt. "Mes amis, to devise a game of misdirection can often draw one deeper into the dim labyrinth of our own making," he finally interjected, his brows knitting in concentration. "But we must navigate through this shadow play with care. The truth lies not merely in what we see, but in what we overlook." With every statement, he leaned into their reactions, gauging how they danced upon the strings of suspicion and desperation. With deliberation, Poirot set about unraveling their stories. He began by inquiring into each person's whereabouts at the time of Lady Evelyn's tragic fall. Walter, confident yet anxious, declared his solitary existence in the study, insisting he was buried in financial reports. Clara, her eyes widening, confirmed she had been searching for a lost pendant in her room, though her trembling fingers betrayed her calm demeanor. Jonathan's testimony matched Clara's. He had sought solace in his private quarters, wrestling with demons of grief. Ah, but allow me to offer a slight diversion for contemplation, Poirot continued, noting the body language of his interrogators. What if there lies within your alibis an intention far more sinister? Walter, I believe you still harbor ambitions tangled amid debts that threaten your very foundations. Clara, your jealousy may well conceal motives more insidious than mere longing. Enough, Poirot! Clara's voice quivered with alarm, a vulnerability punctured with resentment. You cannot grasp what I have suffered. Poirot paused, studying her fervor. Indeed, it is precisely that suffering which often yields the deceit that cloaks us, cher ami. But allow me to pursue an alternate thread. He pulled at threads of misdirection, an untraceable before that echoed through the hallowed halls of the estate, rather than the apparent motives they all espoused. Every word counted, circling back to the question of who stood to gain from Evelyn's demise. Now tell me of the journal she kept, the one inaccessible to your eyes. Could it not hold the key to seeping rivalries? Just then, as if scripted by fate, Clara let slip a cryptic phrase barely heard above the storm's howl. There are depths to this sorrow you cannot fathom, Poirot, and ties that bind us are not always what they seem. Poirot's brow creased, lightning flickering outside, illuminating the fear twisting in Clara's expression. She instinctively stepped closer to the mantel, a protective gesture that further fueled Poirot's perception. A cascade of thoughts began to swirl, her conflicting loyalties, Walter's ambitions, and Jonathan's grief, transformed into a fertile ground for lies and obfuscations. The night wore on, twisting the very fabric of their confessions, and just when everything seemed to forge toward resolution, Poirot found himself misled by an unexpected clue. A cascade of emotions had driven Jonathan's outburst, but an incidental slip caught Poirot by surprise. A reference made by Clara to an intimacy she had shared with Evelyn that could only pointing to knowledge not just known, but shared. Ah, this is a game most deceptive, Poirot concluded, regarding the uneasy trio. For though I believe Walter to harbor strong ambitions, the darkness encasing Evelyn's journal suggests you all shared not merely affection, but an apparatus of emotional entrapment. What riddles are hidden in those pages could shed light on deceptions that bind you all tightly together? With that pronouncement, he motioned toward the mantel once more, where shadows played impertinently over the compartment that housed the journal. Each character bristled with individual fears, betraying emotions behind locked doors. The layers of their deceit began to peel back, revealing forth an unexpected twist. Jonathan, who had been a grieving ally, flipped toward animosity, each glance painted with addiction to a past where he had failed to profess his love. Clara's expression shifted, a mixture of realization and dread whispering around her being. What lay beneath the surface unsettled the fragile peace, the whispers of betrayal all held, hostage within the secrets of a death long entwined. Just as it appeared the truth would cascade forth, Poirot himself was confounded, a deceptive misdirect weaving through the very corners of his mind. The emotional intertwining of relationships had led him astray, forcing him to ponder all possibilities while dismissing the one that harbored the truest notion of friendship morphed into treachery. In the intense atmosphere, Poirot stepped back, gathering the strands of betrayal and love woven through the fabric of their existence. Your hearts, dear friends, have led you to the brink of dark waters, he declared solemnly. But it is often the affection we strive to guard the most that becomes our very undoing. Just as you believed you protected her, you submerged her in layers of resentment. As the reality of Poirot's words sank in, shadows flickered against the gnarled edges of the night. A silence prevailed, punctuated only by the tempest outside, enshrouding their gathering in an air thick with confessions unsaid and emotional chaos. Remember, mes amis, Poirot concluded, eyes sparkling with intensity. It is the secrets we clutch most tightly that beckon the shadows, and in them we find not only betrayal, but our very selves revealed. With that final haunting proclamation, he stepped away, leaving the chaos to reel under the weight of their secrets, the storm outside mirroring the tempest raging in their hearts. Chapter 8. The unexpected alliance rain lashed against. The window panes like 1,000 frantic hands seeking entrance. The sound a relentless drum conjuring shadows that whispered secrets in the dim flicker of candlelight. Muffled footsteps echoed in the hallway outside, a ghostly anticipation hanging heavy in the air. The restless night clamored for attention, resonating with the chaos in the hearts of those gathered within the grand, decaying estate. Just then, a piercing scream shattered the charged silence, revealing the harrowing truth that darkness harbored an all-consuming terror. Hercule Poirot stood in the center of the room, his sharp eyes capturing every nuance of the scene before him. A tableau of fear etched upon the faces of his three primary suspects. Clara March, once a figure of sweet allure, now appeared gaunt and shaken, her eyes wide with horror. Her hand trembled as she reached toward her pendant, the treasured piece of jewelry nestled against her throat, acting as a talisman against the encroaching dread. Jonathan Abernathy, meanwhile, displayed a stoic facade that cracked beneath the surface, his clenched fist betraying an internal turmoil that simmered beneath his exterior. Walter Penn, the businessman whose ambition had painted him in shades of ruthless greed, appeared more a cornered animal than a confident predator. The professed loyalty he once boasted of unspooled like frayed thread in the somber atmosphere. Ah, the human heart, it conceals many layers, mon ami, Poirot mused quietly. As he surveyed the trio, a sense of foreboding settled heavily in his chest. Tonight would unravel deeper truths than mere betrayal. Walter was the first to break the silence, his trembling voice a wavering excuse for his uncharacteristic stillness. Evelyn wouldn't have entered that wing alone. Her fall was an accident. He glanced toward the shadows that danced against the walls, searching for unseen allies in his denial. The candles flickered violently, causing shadows to respond in kind, an unsettling reminder that appearances could be deceiving. "No, Walter," Jonathan interjected sharply, his voice rising with a bitter edge. "You speak of accident when you should be facing the truth of what you all kept hidden." Evelyn's voice, her journal, those were the very essence of her spirit, and you circulated around her like vultures. His accusation hung heavy in the air, sparking Clara to flinch. Poirot interposed his calm yet piercing authority into the brewing chaos. "Yet it is you, Jonathan, who now seems to harbor a flame of wrath. Tell me, where were you during the moments that led to her fall? Did your grief blind you to your own possible involvement?" "I was in the library, alone. I had no reason to harm her." Jonathan's outburst echoed, messily cutting through the web of deceit. With each passing moment and renewed escape from the truth, Poirot felt the pieces clicking into place, albeit slowly. The human heart, he recognized, often concealed motives known only to those who truly understood love's curious facades. "What about you, Clara?" He turned his attention. "Are you so certain your attachment to Lady Evelyn remains untarnished by unresolved emotions?" "Poirot," she protested, her voice breaking, "you must understand. I loved her. I would never compel her to harm in any way." Yet her verification barely masked the uncertainty that flickered briefly across her features. The confession was more poignant than betrayal. As Poirot continued to probe, fragments of their lives became illuminated by both empathy and mistrust, while he noted the smallest imperfections in their stories. The way Jonathan's gaze dropped at the mention of Clara's name, the serpentine shift in her posture as she spoke of loyalty while defending herself, and Walter's fleeting moments of hesitation when questions shifted the spotlight onto his ambition. These details formed a tapestry woven with complex threads of lies and truth, waiting to be unraveled. The storm, outside, escalated, mirroring the unrest within. The three stood connected by chains of grief, yet each seemed lost in a storm of self-preservation, unwilling to reveal what lay beneath their carefully constructed facades. Poirot took a step back, steepling his fingers methodically as he pondered the evolving tapestry of their entangled fates. What connects you all, this bond or enmity, has the potential to illuminate or obscure the truth. Let us examine the journal that Lady Evelyn held so dearly. While you each may hide your anguish, it may be that the pages of her heart reveal the essence behind your interactions. At the mention of the journal, Clara's expression shifted, a fleeting flash of vulnerability scrunching her elegant features. "That journal held nothing of importance," she asserted too quickly. Yet the tremor in her voice suggested otherwise. Poirot watched her intently, absorbing the undercurrents of her agitation. Ah, but the human heart retains the most significant echoes where we might least expect. You required the light of honesty, cher ami, while shrouded in shadows, he replied. The tension in the room grew thick enough to slice, each character burdened under the weight of implications that felt heavier with each questioning gaze. Time ticked slowly, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder and the storm outside rattling their senses, a resonance amplifying their unveiled fears. Then through the veil of unease, Poirot perceived a shift. A subtle whisper of alliance seemed to take root amidst the growing rift. Clara and Jonathan exchanged a glance that held complexities of shared memory, implanting the seed of an unexpected proposition. What if we were to confront whatever lies within the journal as a collective? Clara spoke defensively. An alliance? Walter scoffed, yet disbelief masked a glint of intrigue in his eyes. No, not an alliance, Jonathan corrected with sudden resolve. A strategy. If the others are to continue fabricating tales of loyalty, we must seek collaboration in unveiling the truth. The proposition hung in the chilled air, laden with the weight of dormant grudges, yet lighting the path to possible revelations. Poirot observed, his intellect racing ahead of their wavering conviction. Decisions, however fraught with treachery, line the corridors of desperation, ushering forth a shocking revelation that a united front means both strength and vulnerability. With the storm outside howling, like a banshee urging them forward, Poirot seized this opportunity for unraveling their stories. He eyed the journal again, knowing a tempest of emotions festered just below its cover, everything leading to a cathartic extraction of truths buried deep beneath layers of disappointment, jealousy, and grief. As they reluctantly approached the somber mantle where Evelyn's journal lay nestled, Poirot's mind raced through the implications of their newfound alliance. The reverberations of betrayal echoed ominously, yet curiosity beckoned him closer. Just as they prepared to open the pages together, an unexpected twist erupted in Jonathan's expression. Something feral danced behind his eyes, igniting an instinct born of both fury and profound loss. In one sharp movement, he seized the journal before anyone could react, and Poirot felt the air around them shift. It was an act of desperation, one birthed from unseen motives rooted deeply within that circle of deception. I cannot allow you to. Read this, Jonathan exclaimed, revealing an emotion steeped in agony. This journal holds secrets more precarious than anyone here could fathom. For a split second, Poirot faltered, realizing the profound depth hidden not just in words, but in the vulnerable details of love, loss, and twisted loyalty. Jonathan, driven by failures of truth, was prepared to bury the past rather than confront it. A betrayal to Lady Evelyn that spoke volumes. As Poirot stood amidst the brewing storm of emotions, he absorbed the raw power of their collective pain. Two alliances clashed, the one formed by necessity and the one layered in emotional turmoil. With a heavy heart, he allowed himself to breathe, crafting his final resolution. Ah, mes amis, he said slowly, the wistfulness in his voice matched only by the tempest outside. It is often the bonds forged in darkness that illuminate the path. Yet in allowing them to shroud the truth, we risk becoming bound by chains of our own making. With the storm raging outside and the tensions between them intensifying, the essence of the journalist, both fragile and powerful, held their fates in its pages, a fragile truce on the cusp of falling apart. As Poirot stood poised before them all, he realized that this darkly woven alliance might yet yield revelations they least expected. A painful collision between secrets and the truth, and most alarmingly, betrayal lurking at every corner. In the depths of calamity, the darkest truths were poised to unveil, themselves a turbulence leading them toward the brink of emotional reckoning. And amidst it all, Poirot readied himself for the chaos to unfold, catching every fleeting moment in the candlelit dance of secrets long held, ready to emerge as more than just an observer, but a pivotal defender of truth in the face of shattered alliances. The night was far from over. Chapter 9. The Poisoned Chalice. A single shriek pierced through the suffocating darkness, echoing against the damp stone walls of the estate like a funeral knell. Thunder rumbled ominously outside, illuminating the gathering gloom as frantic shadows danced, hungry for secrets. In the flickering candlelight, Hercule Poirot's finely groomed mustache quivered, sensing the palpable tension that suffused the heavy air, thick with grief and treachery. The grand dining hall lay in disarray. At the head of the table, Lady Clara March slumped forward, her elegant dress now a pitiful reminder of her prior composure. In her trembling hand, she clutched a goblet, its crimson contents spilling across the white tablecloth. A wine marred by something far more sinister. Jonathan Abernathy, crouching beside her, wore a visage of shock that contorted to self-preservation, while Walter Penn leaned back against the chair, issuing a low, incredulous chuckle that reverberated in the charged atmosphere. His eyes narrowed as though the very essence of ambition turned malignant, while the others were consumed by a smoke of unspeakable dread. "No, not another life extinguished by your egos," Poirot proclaimed, drawing their attention as he approached, his voice cutting through the chaos like a gleaming blade. Clara's coral silk conveyed her timeless allure, yet the ashen pallor beneath her facade betrayed the dread that twisted her insides. The chalice she clasped bore the weight of a moment, a scene of horror like a painting animated under the spectral glow of soft candlelight and violence. As Poirot began his examination, he caught the shimmer of a golden thread on Clara's wrist, a gift whispered away from Evelyn's estate in muted intimacy, a connection to the departed and her stillborn ambitions. Ah, but the human heart, it can become a labyrinth where betrayal lurks and love entwines. He murmured, letting the words cloak the room in a veil as he steadied himself against the wall, allowing gravity to take hold of his thoughts. What were these simpler truths nestled amid webs of deceit? The trio stood in hushed disbelief, yet Poirot's eyes saw deeper. "Let us consider the matter at hand," he suggested calmly. "The poisoned chalice initiated your despair, a vessel, I fear, with contents meant for treachery." Clara's gasp escaped as abruptly as it was stifled. She seized her pendant instinctively, the once infused sense of innate protection now encumbered with doubt. "I was only pouring wine," she protested, her voice a trembling leaf. "I would never harm her. I have loved her for so long." The proclamation resonated with haunting sincerity, tragically juxtaposed against the backdrop of mortal danger. Jonathan's expression turned dark, his eyes narrowing to slits as he weighed Clara's loyalty. "You may have loved her, yet love can transform into something else, a weapon wielded in vengeance. Was it you who poisoned her?" Poirot silently observed the exchange, weighing each syllable like a delicate balance. Jonathan's desperation writhed beneath his veneer of control. He was acutely aware of the fragility binded to their past. In that moment, Poirot felt a glimmer of something hidden. The relationships were not merely constrained to admiration. Jealousy, too, brewed beneath the surface, just waiting to overflow. They all had something at stake and something to hide. Walter, meanwhile, leaned closer, addressing Poirot with a skeptical gaze. "You shouldn't be so quick to accuse, Poirot," he interjected. "What makes you so certain it was poison? Accidents happen. Perhaps it was. Nothing more than a minor misfortune." His disquieting bravado created ripples of doubt through the room, yet Poirot remained unfazed. This was no simple accident. "Curiously evasive, monsieur," Poirot retorted, his voice steady but edged with challenge. "But I would remind you, the essence of the poison is best understood through scrutiny, and yet your fingers remain still, as if held by unseen chains, Walter." Poirot then recalled the fragile dynamics tucked beneath the surface. Walter had hoped to claim the deceased lady's fortune while wrestling with a sinking ambition. Yet wrapped in the farcical charm of the night, the swirling shadows, who indeed sought what? "Tell me, where were you at the moment of her betrayal?" Poirot continued, his gaze sharp as glass. Caught unprepared, Walter shifted, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "I was just outside," he muttered. "I wanted to give them privacy. A moment of respite, perhaps." Poirot's thoughts churned. He noted how each character weaved intricate tales that only served to deepen the labyrinth. Clara's initial dread flickered uneasily against her defenses. Jonathan's anger quickly morphed, revealing a blazing urgency seeking clarity that slipped through their fingers. And as Poirot prodded deeper, scrutinizing every gesture and inflection, a sudden tension coursed through the air. A familiar reckoning that lingered just out of reach. Yet something seemed amiss, an incongruity that sparked Poirot's insatiable curiosity. The wineglass remained untouched by Lady Clara, and yet her handling of each press to the chalice held tenacity, confused with vulnerability. He recalled how she reached for the pendant upon hearing her name, while Jonathan's face bore that familiar twist of loss. And just as the revelations began to coalesce, a grim specter emerged, like a ripple across a placid surface. Walter's name stirred about the atmosphere of distrust, lingering like a shadow. Did Clara's affection siphon away remnants of loyalty? As Poirot contemplated the complexities at play, a hidden familiarity tugged at his thoughts. Without warning, a sudden twist shattered their discourse. Jonathan, emboldened by a tempest of anger and desire, turned sharply, locking eyes with Clara. "You were the last one to pour, Clara. Your love may well mask a darker truth. Did you desire her life?" "No," she gasped, tears threatening to spill. "My heart was tied to her. I would never wish her harm." Yet her sincerity faltered, leaving room for doubt that Poirot could not ignore. With renewed focus, Poirot leaned forward, observing their interactions with laser-like scrutiny. "But the truth, mes amis, shall oft remain elusive, eh? What if the chalice concealed within its depths not only betrayal, but a truth weaves even deeper?" As Poirot's thoughts spiraled outward, he drew upon the fabric of their entwined histories. Each thread stretched taut over secrets yet unveiled, where love easily strayed from intentions toward betrayal. No, not merely a vessel, a chalice steeped in proverbial poison, layered with regrets of ambition, one that, unbeknownst, might have flourished in the dark. Suddenly an epiphany crystallized, and Poirot widened his gaze, resulting in a breathless crescendo as recognition struck. Like lightning illuminating the truth of the storm. Suddenly, two veils slipped, revealing more than mere suspicion. Could it be each of you may have had a hand in this tragic act as combined participants? Poirot conjectured, weaving his voice into a harmonic rhythm that dissolved their defenses. A chamber where trust eroded into a battleground of accusations, concealed within whispers of love blighted by aspiration. But one pivotal truth remained. "And yet, the chalice," he declared, glancing back toward the discarded glass. "Perhaps its origin was never meant for Lady Evelyn alone." "I don't understand," Clara exclaimed. "In the depths of despair," Poirot clarified, shaking his head slowly, "arises the very essence of a poison that muddled your affections beyond escape. Jealousies entwined with betrayal." And just as bewilderment soared amongst them, he continued, revealing the shocking twist. Lady Clara's hand had clasped a memento with a note hidden beneath the table, a scrap of paper bearing Lady Evelyn's handwriting. It spoke of hidden fears mirrored in your love, Clara. You betrayed her before she fell. Poirot's words hung in the dim air, pregnant with unthinkable truths, as Clara's world began to disintegrate with the impact of each revelation. Outside, the storm howled with a supernatural resonance, the darkness now a poignant witness to their unraveling bonds. In that fractious instant, Poirot addressed them all. Not merely the chalice spills, but a foul substance born from love's envy. The corridors of your hearts grew poisoned. Trust can breed, but also betray. As silence fell, Clara crumbled, and the heartbroken night bore witness to yet another chapter where love and ambition entwined tragically to birth the most lamentable demise. And in the wake of the storm's fury, Poirot inspected the fractured souls before him. It is often said, mes amis, Poirot concluded, standing tall amid the encircling echoes of bygone secrets. The essence of betrayal, hewn within the heart, may yet prove its own downfall. May you find catharsis amidst the storms of your choosing. And as the candlelight flickered and shadows danced, the endless storm drenching the walls of the estate, one thing became indisputable. Love, once pure, may entangle itself in the most unforgiving of hazards. Chapter 10. Revelations in the Dark. The oppressive darkness of the storm-ridden night hung heavy over the estate, the howling wind clawing at the windows like a banshee seeking entrance to a realm of secrets. A flash of lightning lit the room for a brief moment, illuminating the terrified faces of Lady Clara and Jonathan Abernathy, both frozen in a tableau of shock. A solitary figure, the illustrious Hercule Poirot, stood amidst the chaos, his heart racing in sync with the tempest outside, ready to uncover the truth that awaited them within the shadows. With a chill in the air that pricked at the skin, Poirot could feel the charged atmosphere thickening around him, each breath heavy with the weight of unspeakable dread. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured, glancing toward the stained chalice, now lying discarded on the table like a slumbering serpent waiting to strike. Every flickering candlelight danced nervously across the faces surrounding him, reflecting a kaleidoscope of fear and suspicion. And even as the storm threatened to breach the walls of their gathering, the true tempest lay within them. Clara, her once elegant attire now marred with traces of innocent vibrance, clasped her hands tightly together, as if warding off the crushing weight of accusation poised above her. "It was an accident, Poirot. How could I wish harm upon Evelyn? Her voice faltered, revealing the fragility of her emotions. "She was like a sister to me." Jonathan, his brow furrowed in indignation, retorted sharply, "Yet you were the last to hold the chalice before her death, Clara. Are you so certain of your innocence?" His reflexive indignation masked the darker coils of emotional turmoil nestled within his heart, betrayed by the rapid flicker of his gaze, darting between Clara and Poirot, desperate for vindication. Poirot inhaled deeply, allowing the swirling currents of their conflict to envelop him momentarily. The pieces began to set like the droplets of rain on the leaded glass, each character encased in the heart of their own storm. Walter Penn, lurking in the corners, interjected with an air of nonchalance that belied the tension writhing beneath his composed facade. "Accidents and misunderstandings, Poirot. Surely you must know that not all tragedies are born of malintent. Perhaps you seek shadows, where none exist." The elegant detective studied Walter, noting the contours of his sharp features drawn tight in apprehension. The cheerfully reckless bravado he exuded was nothing more than a veneer masking the depths of his ambition, spurred by Lady Evelyn's untimely demise. Poirot chuckled softly to himself. "Ah, but the heart weaves its own narratives, does it not, Monsieur Penn?" The candlelight flickered as Poirot moved within the swirling shadows of the dining hall, his fingers brushing lightly along the table as he sought the breadcrumbs left by fate within the chaos. The air felt conspiratorial, each conversation laden with unspoken narratives, much like the thickening smoke from the dwindling candles. As the storm raged on, he posed questions with an elegance that belied the urgency simmering within, probing their truths while remaining calm amidst the surge. "Where, may I inquire, were you during the moments leading to this calamity, Monsieur Abernathy?" Poirot directed his gaze towards Jonathan, sharp as a scalpel. The man tensed, his jaw tightening as if he bore the weight of a pendulum swing. "What are you insinuating, Poirot? I was checking on Clara," he spat, desperation lacing his voice. Poirot scrutinized the skepticism bubbling in Jonathan's eyes. "And yet your actions reflect fear of consequence rather than of grief," Poirot replied evenly. "The one who fears the illumination of truth may oftentimes be their own accuser. Non," with a gentle wave of his. Hand," he continued. "But the hour is late, and storms reveal truths hidden in light and shadow alike. Shall we unveil what you all conceal?" Each suspicion swirled like leaves caught in a tempest, and it was but a minute before Poirot spied the first thread leading toward revelation. The pendant clasped tightly in Clara's palm glimmered like the eye of a storm, slowly revealing secrets as she let out shuddering breaths. It contained a note from Lady Evelyn, a harbinger of secrets begging for exposure. Poirot's instincts flared, and in that moment of clarity, darkness bloomed in his mind. Victims entwined like vines beneath the weight of their remorse. "Why, Clara," he said, vocalizing his thoughts with conviction, What lies beneath your grief that shapes your heart's masquerade? His voice resonated, dissecting the vulnerability that mirrored betrayal. The tension surged, breathing life into the shadows as he waited for the inevitable tremor of conscience to awaken the truth. But, mere moments before he could dive deeper into the web of their despair, a dissonant knock reverberated through the hall, echoing in time with a particularly violent clap of thunder. Walter's face blanched, panic momentarily replacing his carefully crafted demeanor. "Who dares disturb us?" he hissed, unease creeping into his poise. "Only the whisper of truth that longs to manifest, dear Walter," Poirot replied, his gaze unflinching, "for within these very shadows lies the answer we seek." As he continued his investigation, sweeping shadows across lurid thoughts, Poirot stumbled upon unexpected alliances and buried resentments. The chalice, stained with the essence of bitterness, jubilant dreams of what they sought to gain, unmasked themselves like specters haunting the gathering. He noted Clara's glaring shame, Jonathan's boiling rage, and Walter's lurking ambition cradled within his desperate guise. But the true revelation unfurled in a sweep of dismay as a calculated lie was revealed. Poirot turned to Walter, tapping into his uncertainty. "You too wished for something from Lady Evelyn, did you not? Her inheritance weighed heavily on your shoulders?" "Absurd," Walter snapped too hastily, eyes darting like a trapped animal. "What I coveted was never concealed from her." But the tremor in his voice betrayed him further, unraveling under Poirot's scrutiny. "Ah, but your aspirations lurked in shadows, Monsieur Pen," Poirot retorted, leaning closer, revealing the tension coiling. Through the remnants of decorum, he intertwined the threads of their lives, where ambition often danced hand in hand with tragedy, leading inevitably to jealousy and treachery. Poirot paused, eyes flickering with inspiration as he placed pieces together. And just as he turned to address them again, another voice broke through the momentum of their collective despair. A specter of the past resurrected in a moment of dramatic flair. "Enough of this charade, Poirot. You know nothing of what truly occurred." The voice belonged to Evelyn, her silhouette emerging from the shadows, resplendent in her grief. They stood aghast, the unraveling thread of her fabric overhanging like a shroud. "Lady Evelyn," clamored Clara, "but you are in—" Her words hung heavy, weighted with disbelief. Poirot, however, felt the rush of adrenaline, for his mind seethed with implications and potentialities yet uncharted. "Indeed," Evelyn declared, reveling in the unfolding layers of truth. "It was I who sought to test the mettle of those surrounding me, ambitions tangled deep as roots. I wished only to reveal the yearning beside me." Her gaze pierced each heart, one by one. And alas, I discovered deceit lurked deeper than mere betrayal. As the tempest outside echoed their shock, the herald of looming truths, Poirot observed each reaction, gauging the interplay driven by fear and revelation. In that moment, he understood all too well the depths of emotion that propelled them, exposing the fractured aspects residing in their hearts. Clara quivered, breath hitching as she was faced with the weight of her unwitting hand in this betrayal. "But I loved you. I wanted you to live," she spluttered, grief-stricken. "Your love," Evelyn quipped, voice laden with an ironic lilt, "became a mirror reflecting deeper shame. Wielded with jealousy, it birthed the venom in your heart." She glanced toward Walter with disdain. "And you, did you think pretense would shield your ambitions while you weaved false tapestry?" Poirot stepped closer, eyes glimmering as he beckoned for the confessions that lay poised on the precipice of his expressions. "Lady Evelyn, it appears that your test of loyalty was a poison nearly too potent to bear. Would you not call them merely threads woven from the complexity of trust?" Thus the tragedy unwound slowly, spiraling through confessions that lurked beneath the guise of love and ambition. Poirot marshaled them through the labyrinth of complexity, illuminating their paths while the storm roared outside, shadows entwining them tightly. In the darkness, revelations emerged with brutal clarity, pain intertwined within betrayal's grasp. Poirot knew their hearts bore weight not only from their deceit, but their deep, revealing love that once existed there between the shadows. "Alas, mon ami," he concluded, standing alone amid the swirling tempest of the night, "when love entwines itself within ambition, When trust becomes a double-edged sword, we find ourselves entangled deep within the perilous capabilities of our own hearts. And as the night surged forth, echoing with unchained emotions, he knew that this tale would forever resound. The agony of love, ambition, and betrayal forever set against the dark canvas of their tragic fate. Chapter 11. The Final Puzzle. A low rumble of thunder echoed ominously, resonating with an unsettling chill in the damp air as Hercule Poirot entered the dimly lit study. The flickering candlelight seemed to shiver in response, casting elongated shadows that whispered secrets of the past. The remnants of a shattered vase lay scattered across the polished wooden floor, fragments glinting like the jagged edges of a soul torn asunder. Lady Clara, her face pale and drawn, clutched her hands in front of her, an anxious rhythm of distress echoing in each twitch of her fingers. "Why must we endure this torment, Poirot?" she implored, her voice trembling, laced with desperation. "What more do you wish to uncover? Lady Evelyn lies lifeless, and yet the truth eludes us like smoke in the wind." "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied softly, his keen eyes scanning the room for clues that had yet to reveal themselves. Each detail spoke to him: the scent of fresh ink, a solitary book half opened on the desk, the way Clara's breath quickened with the mention of Evelyn's name. Truth, you see, is often obscured behind the veil of one's desires and regrets. The atmosphere thickened, a murmuring tension clinging to the air as Jonathan Abernathy leaned against the wall, his arms crossed defensively. "I find it hard to believe you could still weave your web of deduction amid such sorrow, Poirot," he drawled, unable to mask the bite of resentment in his tone. "You had no love for her, yet here you prance about, divining truths that are none of your concern." "On the contrary, Monsieur Abernathy," Poirot countered, his voice unwavering, "the specter of ambition, of longing perhaps, intertwines each of our fates. You, as much as anyone, stand to gain or lose in the wake of this tragedy." His gaze shifted to the shadows where Walter Penn lingered, the presence of ambition creeping silently around him. "But ambition can lead one to unforeseen treachery, oui?" Walter's lips twitched into a fleeting smile, though his eyes betrayed flickers of unease. "You speak like a poet, Poirot, yet you impose a darkness where there may only be despair. Lady Evelyn was our friend, not a pawn in your elaborate game of chess." He adjusted his collar, a subtle movement that felt both calculated and instinctual. "It is easy to dismiss the dark facets of friendship when ambitions cloud one's vision," Poirot observed thoughtfully, shiftings of his brow suggesting a depth of understanding. "And yet the depths of our hearts will always reveal their hideous truths in the end." The three suspects remained encased in a web of tensions as Poirot continued his careful examination of the room. Lingerings of the past waned in the air. Letters haphazardly stacked on the desk. Whispers of unresolved disputes unspooling like stray threads. Poirot placed his hand gently on the fragments of the vase, a momentary stillness enveloping him. "The broken pieces, they resemble our shattered lives," he mused, noting the way Jonathan's fingers twitched, hinting at the turmoil that lay just beneath the surface. "Perhaps it is time we shared the truth, Clara," Jonathan pressed, his voice growing louder, the heat of indignation igniting a fire in his tone. "You were alone with her prior to her death. Did you not see the shadows that danced between you?" Clara's expression morphed into one of vulnerability laced with fury. "I was her friend, Jonathan. I wanted to help her, to protect her from herself." She choked, her breaths coming in quickened patterns, hints of an accusation lingering on her lips. "And yet, it was I who held the chalice." With the tension reaching a boiling point, Poirot interjected with a calming demeanor. "Let us not lace the fabric of our unity with hasty judgments. Clara, what did you see in her eyes as you brought forth the chalice? Was it not fear or a fleeting glimpse of regret that held her captive?" The air turned thick with uncertainty as Clara's gaze darted away, hinting at a truth that had yet to emerge. I thought Evelyn wanted to tell me something important." She looked pale, distraught. Her voice softened, haunted by fear. "But why do you question that moment now, Poirot?" Poirot studied her closely, torn between admiration for her pain and the darkness it encapsulated. Beware, dear Clara. Shadows of grief may twist intentions, leading one to believe in specters lurking where there are none. Yet you presume danger in my truth too? Jonathan interjected, his voice rattling with indignation akin to a trapped animal. Perhaps it is you who weaves deceit, Poirot. Where were you during this calamity? As tension swirled around them, Poirot unraveled the intricate threads of their lives, ambitions entwined within the shadows. Amidst the swirling chaos, the detective's mind churned with fleeting revelations. A sudden realization struck hard. Evelyn's letter, plan hidden among the shadows, it lay within the folds of Clara's grasp. The note you clutch tightly, Clara. It signifies her fears, does it not? Clara hesitated, guilt mixed with horror washing over her countenance. It was just a letter, a trivial oversight. Ah, but therein lies the key to the truth, mon ami. Poirot spoke with profound gravity. The trivial may spiral into the fatal, and within lies a scheme unseen. Lies not born of malice but of love and jealousy, a varying discord amongst friends turned to foes. At that moment, the house shuddered, fragile as the truths they all concealed. An explosion of thunder rattled the glass, and with it entered a figure cloaked in the remnants of dark drama. Lady Tony, Evelyn herself, a specter rising from the very shadows of their despair. Gasps echoed through the room, disbelief palpable, yet there stood a newfound resolve in Poirot's gaze. Lady Evelyn, how is it that you survived? Clara stumbled backward, horror etched across her features, while Jonathan stared wide-eyed, bewildered by the impossible. Ah, dear friends, how eager you are to leap into despair, Evelyn proclaimed, her voice steady and confident, an eager playfulness weaving through her. Raccount, you see, this was all a test. Each one of you harbored shadows born of ambition. Clara, yearning for my affections. Jonathan, craving approval in your own darkened ways. And Walter, the ever-ambitious vulture. Poirot observed further as the flickering candles danced defiantly, shadows swirling against the chilling storm, retreating into a tempest of heartache and betrayal. But alas, the heart is a treacherous reservoir. You all were caught in its snare. With bated breaths and aching hearts, all eyes turned once more to Poirot, as he stood unfettered amid the confusion, ready to pull the strings tighter, revealing every fissure in their fragmented truth. Ambition's poison, my friends, weaves through your veins. An accident, perhaps, but born of desire, an act of desperation shaped by the mask you wore. The quiet aftermath settled, a potent echo of betrayal laced within their hearts as Poirot, poised in elegance, addressed the gathered souls. Alas, when secrets dance upon our lips, it is only a matter of time before truth wrestles free from its shackles. Today, you learned pain resides not only in ambition, but in the silent sufferings of the heart. As the storm retreated to shadows beyond, Poirot's parting words hung thick, seeping into the cracks of their souls like incense. Indeed, the real tragedy is not merely in death, but in the haunting way we mask our true selves beneath the burdens of our intertwined desires. Chapter 12. The revelation that shook all. A scream shattered the oppressive stillness of the night, piercing through the torrential rain, battering the ornate windows of the old estate like tortured spirits seeking escape. In the dimly lit hallway, shadows flickered as though dancing with malevolence, and Hercule Poirot stood poised at the cusp of chaos, the echoes of despair calling his keen mind into focus. The heart, he mused quietly, is capable of harboring the darkest secrets, even among those who wear the trappings of friendship. Pardon. The aftermath of Lady Evelyn's shocking return, an air of disbelief clung to the assembled guests like a shroud. The storm raged outside, a fitting backdrop to the turmoil that festered within. Clara, still trembling from the encounter, clutched at her throat, her expression a mixture of terror and frustration. What trickery is this, Poirot? She should be dead. Her fingers entwined tightly, betraying the storm brewing within her. Ah, but the embrace of death, mon ami, is oft but a thin veil. Poirot observed calmly, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the distressed gathering. Walter Penn's face had turned ashen, his previously confident demeanor replaced by a haunting uncertainty. Evelyn toyed with our hearts, perhaps. You all sought to weave her demise into the fabric of ambition. Non, he mused, an intricate thread of accusation woven into his words. The tension thickened as Jonathan Abernathy stepped forward, his voice laced with indignation. Enough of this charade, Poirot. We can either find the truth or pry open wounds too deep to heal. That woman was a master of manipulation. Her spirit emerged from the recesses of deceit. His eyes flared with a flicker of something more. Fear, perhaps? As he glanced toward Clara, who now appeared to shrink under the weight of scrutiny. Each soul here is entangled in the web of ambition and desire. Each bears the mark of complicity. Yes, Poirot remarked with the elegance of a maestro orchestrating a symphony. The fractured vase was merely a foreshadowing. What is a trinket but a reflection of the souls that guard it with such fervor? As he spoke, Poirot noticed a faint stain of ink upon Jonathan's cuff, an inconspicuous detail that clashed against the backdrop of his dark attire. As the tempest rumbled outside, Poirot guided the suspects back to the drawing room, where flickering candles cast elongated shadows marred by the fleeting glow of desperation. We must summon our courage to elucidate the events of that wretched night. Clara, what thoughts lingered in Evelyn's words that stilled the very breath within your lungs? His gaze remained fixed on her, hinting at the gravity of the moment. Clara's defenses crumbled as she recalled the memory. She spoke of betrayal and how jealousy can raise the strongest of bonds, she murmured, the tremor in her voice betraying her anguish. She feared for her life, yet in that moment, it was as if she knew someone would wish her harm. Walter shifted uncomfortably, his usual bravado now dulled by the weight of suspicion. Nonsense. It was simply a dramatization born from insecurity. None of us would harm Evelyn. Yet beneath the surface of his protest, a hint of rage flickered in his eyes as he glared at Jonathan. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. In its depths, ambition and fear often give way to sinister inclinations, Poirot interjected softly. He moved closer to Walter, ensuring his presence loomed like a shadow. You stand to gain much from her demise, do you not? Wealth, position, prestige? Walter's jaw clenched, a storm brewing within as he spat. You cannot pin this upon me like a butterfly to a board, Poirot. I was merely her business partner. Besides, your theatrics betray your own agenda. Poirot observed the dynamics like a skilled chess player, discerning the tension that lay beneath the surface. Each word, each glance exchanged, spoke volumes of hidden motives. He continued his meticulous exploration, asking pointed questions that elicited uncomfortable responses. Then he noticed a faint mark on Clara's finger, almost invisible but for the way she clutched her palm. You possess something, Clara, do you not? What lies beneath your delicate grasp? He queried, unwilling to let the moment slip. Her eyes widened, panic coursing through her as she delicately peeled open her fingers. There lay a torn piece of Evelyn's letter, the letter smeared with ink, likely from the original text. I didn't mean to hold on to it, she stammered, the tremor in her voice indicative of her guilt. I thought it might hold answers, but I never read it. I swear. A cloud of uncertainty enveloped them as Poirot examined the fragment, the intricacies of its content swirling through his mind like wisps of fog. His astute gaze flicked from Clara to Walter, who awaited the verdict like a caged animal, and then finally to Jonathan. The atmosphere crackled. Secrets loomed larger than the shadows themselves. At this juncture, a new realization washed over Poirot, a moment of clarity buried beneath layers of deception. Mon ami, within your ambitions lies a network of betrayal far deeper than anticipated. You all sought to protect your interests at the cost of your humanity. The unattainable pursuit of love, transfigured into the heinous act of betrayal. A heavy silence cast its grip over the room as Poirot's revelation washed over them. He could hear the thunder clap defiantly outside, mirroring the tension encasing them. The truth, it would seem, is as treacherous as the tempest outside. But there is one final truth. What you claim to be a game of power, dear friends, has cost you something dear beyond measure. And then from the very shadows of uncertainty, an unexpected figure emerged. Lady Evelyn. Her eyes sparkled with a light born of distant wisdom, a haunting yet enlightening specter. You thought my return would mark the end of your foolish charade, but rather it marks the beginning of your undoing, she declared, her voice echoing like a ghostly refrain through the anguished minds that had sought her destruction. Poirot's heart raced, a burgeoning mixture of intrigue and determination sizzling within him. But why return, dear Lady Evelyn? He demanded, the silence thickening as he sought the profound truth hidden behind the masquerade. What did your heart wish to save, and what had it sown amongst those bereft of virtue? Love betrayed can wield a far greater weapon, Poirot, she replied, the strength of her words resonating. And amidst the desire for vengeance, I sought not my death, but the revelation of true faces and the revealing of hidden darkness. The chilling truth dawned on all present, the intricate design of deceit woven so painfully tight. Poirot, ever so vigilant, relished the labyrinth he had navigated, his heart embodying both sympathy and authority. Indeed, mon ami, what you've laid bare shall bear fruit, as even the deepest shadows flee from the light of revelation. Your hearts entwined in ambition, your souls compelled towards betrayal. What remains of friendship now? With the storm relenting outside, Poirot concluded, true revelation is often shrouded in darkness, but in the end, it is the light of honesty that unravels what you seek. The true tragedy lies not within ambition, but in the fracture of trust, a dark echo reverberating in the hearts of those who once called one another friend. As the storm faded, it left behind the heavy scent of loss tinged with a sliver of hope. The revelation, shrouded in mystery, lingered like a haunting melody, a testament to the empathy entwined with betrayal, awaiting the resolution that would unfold in the hearts of those betrayed.